And our beloved John. Our friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence, there is lamentation. In their tears, there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, and be with them. For John's love that united us in life and for which death cannot sever. For his companionship that we shared along life's path and which continues through the tenderness of memory, for the gifts of his heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give our thanks to God. In this time of grief, we listen to the voice of our sacred scriptures that brings us the ever-new message of God's nearness. It tells us of our kinship with the Creator, in light as in darkness, in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death. I'm going to continue with Psalm 23. Adonai roi, lo exar, bineo deshe, yarbitseni, al mei minuchot yenahaleni, nafshi shovev yancheni v'magle tzedek leman shemo. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Gam kilech begeit salmavet lo hirara ki ata imadi shiftecha mishantecha hema yenachamuni taroch lefanai shulchan neged zorerai dishanta vashemen roshi kosi revaya ach tov achesen yidifuni koyemei chayai vishavti bevet Adonai leorech yamim. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. A poem by the poet Chaim Nachman Bialik. After my death. Say this when you mourn for me. There was a man, and look, he is no more. He died before his time. The music of his life suddenly stopped. A pity, there was another song in him, and now it is lost forever. A great pity, he had a violin or a drum or whatever else John played. a living, speaking soul to which he uttered the secrets of his heart, making all its strings vibrate, save one that he kept inviolate. Back and forth his supple fingers danced, one string alone remained entranced, still unheard. A pity, all its life that string quivered, silently shook, yearned for its song, its mate, as a heart saddens before its fate. Despite delay, it waited daily, mutely beseeching its savior lover, who lingered, loitered, tarried ever, and did not come. Great is the pain. There was a man, known to us as John, and look, he is no more. The music of his life suddenly stopped. There was another song in him, and now it is lost forever. Pam. Dear Shekhinah, who resides on the highest of heights, I beseech of you, preserve my marriage as a peaceful memory. Restore me this year to life, to ongoing healing, healing of the soul and the body. Bring me out from the days of my marriage into the days of my widowerhood widowhood, with grace and compassion. Adonai, my God, who heals the brokenhearted and restores their bodies, bring consolations to the bereaved within their homes and their hearts. God, blessed in day and in night, blessed as I rise up with my mourning, blessed as I lie down in my private torment and yearning, gather into eternal life the soul of my beloved, my soulmate, John. Death of a parent. Move to the front of a line, a voice says, and suddenly there is nobody left standing between you and the world to take the first blows on their shoulders. This is the place in books where part 1 ends and part 2 begins, and there is no part 3. The slate is wiped, not clean, but like a canvas painted over in white, so that a whole new landscape must be started, bits of the old still showing underneath. Those colors sadness lends to a certain hour of evening. Now the line of light at the horizon is the hinge between earth and heaven, only visible a few moments as the sun drops its rusted padlock into place. The poets and sages of ancient times knew that the experience of being overwhelmed and overcome with feelings was not something from which one could escape. Their thinking was that in moments when we are overcome and feeling the depths of our pain, we need to take a break and think again. If we have the capacity to feel deep pain, we have the capacity to experience joy in the same proportion. This beautiful setting by Debbie Friedman. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy, will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy. It's the song of the dreamer, from a dark place it grows, like a flower in the desert, the oasis of our souls. Come back where we belong, you who hear our longing cries. Our mouths, our lips are filled with song. You can see our tear-filled eyes. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy, will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy. What Will Matter by Michael Josephson. Ready or not, someday it will all come to an end. There will be no more sunrises, no minutes, hours, or days. All the things you collected, whether treasured or forgotten, will pass to someone else. Your wealth, fame, and temporal power will shrivel to irrelevance. It will not matter what you owned or what you were owed. Your grudges, resentments, frustrations, and jealousies will finally disappear. So too, your hopes, ambitions, plans, and to-do lists will expire. The wins and losses that once seemed so important will fade away. It won't matter where you came from or what side of the tracks you lived on at the end. It won't matter whether you were beautiful or brilliant. Even your gender and skin color will be irrelevant. So what will matter? How will the value of your days be measured? What will matter is not what you bought, but what you built. Not what you got, but what you gave. What will matter is not your success, but your significance. What will matter is not what you learned, but what you taught. What will matter is every act of integrity, compassion, courage, or sacrifice that enriched, empowered, or encouraged others to emulate your example. What will matter is not your competence, but your character. What will matter is not how many people you knew, but how many will feel a lasting loss when you're gone. What will matter is not your memories, but the memories of those who loved you. What will matter is how long you will be remembered, by whom and for what. Living a life that matters doesn't happen by accident. It's not a matter of circumstance, but of choice. Choose to live a life that matters, and we know that John did. In his sorrow, Job cried out, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, yehi shem Adonai mevarach. God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. An ancient people, we are well acquainted with grief and with the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us. Yet the centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave and that there is strength in faith. With Job, we say, Adonai natan, God, you have given. You gave us a loved one, John, who will not be forgotten. For all that was good and enduring in his life, we offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. Adonai lakach, God, you have taken away. We pray for the strength to turn our broken hearts into an altar of trust, before which we acknowledge your sovereignty and love, as we now say, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevarach. Blessed be the name of God, now and forever. The following poem was written by Rabbi Karen Kadar. It's called Learning from Death. The true worth of a life is the story it has left behind. Tell it well. Search for meaning and understanding. Search for the truth. Did he teach you about love? Did she personify genius or sensitivity? Did his life warn you of the danger of bitterness and anger? As I stand and behold the eyes of those who mourn, I realize that the only difference between people in this world is not their wealth, fame, or success. The only difference is those who had love in their life and those who did not. It is evident from the number of people that are here today how much John touched each of your lives. John not only had a lot of love in his life, but he knew how to return that love as well. John Felder was born in St. Louis, Missouri in 1947 to Adolf and Eunice Felder. He was the third child out of 6. His dad built the house that he grew up in. It was the center of all of their family gatherings, full of lots of love and laughter. This continued even as John and his siblings grew older and had families of their own. They would all convene together in St. Louis and had some of their summer vacations there. John eventually left St. Louis and traveled here to California to attend Stanford University, majoring in English. Deciding that he wanted to teach, John got a teaching credential and went to work at Logan High School. While there, he created a new music appreciation class and soon was asked to take over the whole music program. Already an accomplished musician, he decided to further his studies and went to UC San Diego for graduate school, studying music composition and music education. After his graduation, he earned the title of Dr. Felder and went to teach at UC Santa Cruz for a few years. There he taught electronic music and conducting, and in 1993, he was hired as the band director at Lynbrook High. He built Lynbrook into a renowned music program in the state of California, and as his obituary said, John taught his students discipline, leadership, respect, and responsibility, and became lovingly known as Doc. While John was in college, he met Joan, and the two of them married and had 3 sons, Jed, Jared, Zach, and Sean. After living in San Diego, La Jolla, when John was studying at UC San Diego, the family moved first to Hayward and then to Campbell. Eventually, John and Joan divorced, and Joan passed away in 1999. Even though John's passion was music, the family was also very active in sports. John even coached the boys' t-ball and soccer teams. As I said before, a highlight for the family was going to St. Louis every summer for 2 weeks. They would water ski on the lake, and they developed close relationships with all of their cousins, since the whole family would come together. In addition to his children, John was a dog lover. John had a Vizsla named Janos, after a composer, and they would often take the dog to the Santa Cruz beach in his old VW bus. Sometimes it was touch and go whether the bus would make it over the hill. But once they got there, a good time was had by all, especially the dog. John and Joan joined Shir Hadash, and the boys had their bar mitzvahs here in this congregation, though probably not in this building. When Rabbi Erin began her tenure at Shir Hadash, she invited John to be the choir conductor beginning the summer of 1991. John conducted the choir until 1996, when he was replaced by another Felder, me. While there is no family connection between John and me, our shared commitment to music was a great bridge for our congregation. Over 22 years ago, Pam was John's dentist. They were both single. It had been a long time since John had been on a date, and this would be his first date after his divorce. He was not really an assertive man, and even Pam was surprised when he asked her out. He also had no idea what to do on his first date, so he asked the boys what to do. Sean suggested that they go to Buco de Beppo. It's a little hard to talk there, and there was so much food, but they both had a good time. As Pam and John's relationship developed, he had to win over Laura, who was 8 years old when her mom began dating John. Pam said that Laura would give him the stink eye. Eventually, though, they developed a beautiful relationship. Pam is amazed that the two of them, her and John, even found the time to date, given her busy dental practice and his band program. And yet the rest is history, as they were together for over 22 years. Together they traveled, both on their own and in the early years with the band program at Lynbrook. John organized trips for the students, going to Spain, Italy, Costa Rica, and China. And he and Pam often took pre-tours to the tour locations, even traveling to China in business class. Laura graduated when John retired. Retirement wasn't so easy for John, and he found himself teaching music theory at Saratoga High School. He participated in the San Jose Wind Symphony as the drummer. He mentored other music directors and taught at San Jose State University. He loved to read, especially nonfiction. He preferred biographies of the presidents and loved reading about politics. He continued having dogs, including his beloved Snickers, a little 10-pound rescue dog who just brought out the little kid in him. John was such a dedicated teacher and musician. He couldn't abide bad music. He was able to reach his students, band members, and choir members in a way that made the light bulb go off for all of them. He made them sound better. He was, in essence, amazing. He was so beloved that I understand over 200 former students came back for his retirement party, and it's evident again by all of you here now. 30 years ago, John had a heart attack. From that day forward, he began to really take care of himself. For the last couple of years, he's even been a vegan, though he would often cheat when he was out with his friends. But even when we think we are doing all the right things for ourselves, things happen. John's death was sudden and unexpected. And yet the legacy and the music that he made will go on through his family, friends, and students. As Rabbi Kadar said, the true worth of a life is the story it has left behind. John's story will continue through all of you. And as Irving Berlin said, the song has ended, but the melody lingers on. John's melody will continue through all of us. Zichrona livracha, may his memory be for a blessing. So we're going to hear this afternoon from several speakers. We're going to begin first with one of John's former students, and one of mine actually, Amy Blasberg.
I also had my bat mitzvah here, also not in this building. It wasn't so nice across the way in that room with the linoleum. I will never forget the day I met Doc. The year was 1997, and it was the first day of band camp. I was 13 years old, young for my grade, and honestly, just plain young. I didn't believe in being on time. My motto was, always late, but worth the wait. Thank you. I hopped out of my dad's car, grabbed a donut, and rushed into the band room to find a seat. Within moments, I had committed 2 cardinal sins, tardiness and eating in the band room. It only would have been worse if I had worn flip-flops and forgotten a pencil. I have a sneaking suspicion the only reason Doc allowed me to come back the next day was because he was desperate for trombone players, even ones who could barely play the trombone, like me. Or it may have just been because he sang in the Shir Hadash choir with my mom's best friend, Sue Day. But either way, I was very lucky that he didn't kick me out that day. Our initial meeting may have been a bit rocky, but it wasn't long before I learned to play the trombone, and more importantly, to meet Doc's high expectations. Doc was demanding. He asked us to be the best versions of ourselves, and he would not accept anything less. To achieve that goal, he implemented some teaching practices that were a bit unorthodox. It was the 90s, way before the era of gentle parenting, and there was a lot of yelling. I can just hear him now, and I'm just not going to yell into this microphone, but, Sam Wu, take a lap! You're Lynbrook students. Or if someone was breathing in the middle of a phrase, do you have emphysema? You can hear him now too, right? With one look, or this, as some of us remember, he knew how to make us regret whatever we had been doing for a very long time. On our band tour sophomore year to England and Scotland, he overheard me bragging about how many times I had been to Europe. Later that day, a student approached him in Westminster Abbey to ask him where the trash can was. He responded by saying, well, I've been to Europe more times than Amy, and I know where every single trash can is in every cathedral in all of Europe. Point taken. When he caught himself being particularly harsh, he would reassure us that it was an act of love. Of course, he was hardest on the students he cared about the most, and I'm sure it was no coincidence that they often happened to be drummers. But it wasn't just us that he held to a potentially unreachable standard, it was himself. If there was a student he couldn't get through to, he took it to heart, as if he himself had personally failed by not reaching them. He spent his summers writing and arranging field shows for the marching band. On any given summer day, you could drive by the Lynbrook Band Room and see his blue minivan parked outside. When a massive heart attack forced him to take it easy, he outsourced that fall's field show. As you can imagine, it wasn't long before he was implementing rewrites and corrections because only the best was good enough for us. There was no way to witness his commitment without it rubbing off. The lesson was clear. If you put your heart and soul into something, greatness will inevitably follow. He set the tone, and the rest of us imitated his very powerful example. It wasn't always so serious. Doc never passed up the opportunity to throw someone in the pool. He routinely joked about not letting me give speeches, and maybe you're starting to see why. When we went to the Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival in Idaho, it was Doc who insisted we pull over in the parking lot for a snowball fight. I have the vaguest recollection of him putting snow in my pants. Like I said, it was the 90s. He loved being privy to the details of our romantic entanglements. He was especially eager to hear the details of me getting kicked out of Stanislaus Music Camp for being out past bed check with another former student. I suspect he was mostly relieved that hadn't happened on his watch. That same summer, my mom, her best friend, and I, Sue, and I gave him the nudge he needed to finally ask out his dentist, Pam. His lame excuse that his mouth was always open just wasn't flying with us. To say that Doc had a profound impact on my life feels like a bit of an understatement. When I told my aunt that Doc had passed away, she said, "He was the shamus. He was the candle that lit the other candles in your life." He gave me the nickname Amala, dear little Amy in Yiddish, a name that would be adopted by both Sue Day and my high school sweetheart and would follow me for many years. He encouraged me to try out for section leader senior year, even though that position was already technically filled. It was an early lesson that if someone encourages you to apply for a job, it's a good sign that they might want to hire you. He wrote my letter of recommendation to Stanford, where I went and followed in his footsteps, and maintained it was one of the best he had ever written. Were it not for our band tour to Italy 25 years ago, I doubt I would have learned Italian or studied abroad in Florence. In many ways, the course he charted for me has determined much of my adult life. We kept in touch over the years, seeing each other at annual Thanksgiving weekend gatherings at my parents' house, and of course at his Lynbrook retirement party, where I also gave a speech. Although Doc and Pam got lost and missed most of my wedding ceremony, Doc was one of the first people on the dance floor to lift my chair as we danced the hora, shepherding me into married life. When the confluence of COVID and new babies kept me from regular trips to California, we exchanged emails and annual holiday cards. About 18 months ago, Doc sent me the following message. "You were sorely missed today at Vicki Quinnell's memorial celebration," one of the band parents. "What a wonderful assortment of fine folks came through Lynbrook in those years. Perhaps Camelot is not too far a stretch. It was a treat to be with Rebecca, Jordy, Anita, Sean, and Amin, most of whom are here today. I'm sure you will figure out a way to get us all together sometime before the old guy passes from the scene. I'm only sorry that I didn't get the chance. I know the old guy would have loved it. Thank you."
We're now going to hear from the music director, Michael Boytz from Saratoga High School, a colleague and a friend.
I think everybody in this room has their own version of John Felder and Pam Nomura's first date. And I hate to start that way, but I feel like I I kind of have to, because so far we've alluded to, John, an anchor in my life as a young music educator when I moved here. But the guy had to be the best poker player you've ever met in your life, because he could keep that straight face, as you know, right? And we're standing around at the Cupertino Tournament of Bands Award ceremony. There was a couple that was running the organization back in those days, and Doc used to joke that they were putting out the tabulation in hieroglyphics or something, because it would take like 3 to 4 hours before it would be completed. And so we were just, band director talk, whatever we talk about, nerdy things, and John proclaimed to us, me and John Byrne, who unfortunately is not here today because he's running a state festival down in Southern California, he said, I think I'm going to ask somebody out. And I looked at him, and I didn't know if this was and so I instantly made a joke out of it. I said, well, but John, you're so old. And then John Byrne chimed in and he said, and bald. And then Doc told us to pick a finger, and pardon me, yeah, sorry. And literally a little over a year later, they were married. And when he told us who he was going to ask out, he said, I asked, who are you going to ask out? Pam Nomura. And I was joking on the Diet Coke, whatever I was drinking. I said, the dentist? Your dentist? Is there a hippo rule or something for this? You can't. And he said, we'll see about that. So, and then a little over a year later, they were married. And if you were at the wedding, it was up in the hill at a friend's place in Saratoga, and very beautiful setting. But one of the most hilarious moments of the wedding was when I forgot what it's called, when the rabbi or pastor asks the question if anybody in here is disagrees with the marriage or something. Well, there were these peacocks, if anybody remembers, and the peacocks made this very loud, unusual sound. And I thought either that's a really good sign or that's a bad sign. But it was a great sign. Knowing John, I used to call it, it was BPS. So that was before Pam and Sonny. Sonny, my partner, who's in the back of the room with my kids, Anthony and Thomas. I called it BPS because before Pam and Sonny, John and I were neighbors in the vineyards of Saratoga, and I didn't even know they lived there before I bought this little 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom condo, and we instantly became friends, and he was a mentor from day one. Sorry, for those of you that I don't know, my name is Michael Boytz, and I've been teaching at Saratoga High for about 28 years, and John Felder I met him in the spring of '99, my first year at Saratoga High, and he instantly became a role model to me, and he was an anchor to me. And I moved here from Minneapolis, from Minnesota, which, John said that was interesting, or however he said that with so my first CMEA, one of my judges is here, Norm D., who is our former state president and Bay Section president and all that stuff, and many music educators are here. I hope there's no CMEA rubric going on for this speech right now. And so I'm very, very nervous. I'm 20 whatever years old, and I have this one small band at Saratoga High. Our CMEA festival was at Gunn High School. Norm, you were the sight reading judge at that event. You scared the dickens out of me, by the way, with that look you're giving me right now, the same look. And so I had moved here, and we were sort of taught that you want to go to your local universities to get inspiration, musical inspiration for band and orchestra. So I went to San Jose State at the time, and I went to a band concert, and it was nothing like it is now. It's substantially stronger now, and David Vickerman is doing a magnificent job, and Ed Harris did a wonderful job at that university. But when I was there, they were in transition, and it was pretty uninspiring at that moment when I went there. So I was sort of surprised. And then I went to Stanford University to hear a band concert there, and somehow I heard the marching band, and then I didn't realize what the marching band at Stanford was. I found out really quick. Growing up in Minnesota was a very opposite situation, and so I thought, God, I better find somebody who, that I can cling on to pretty quick. And so later, I think it was the next day actually, that I brought my group to Gunn High School for CMEA. I went up to hear a few of the bands, and I heard Lynbrook High School, and the announcer said they're going to play Rocky Point Holiday by American composer Ron Nelson. And many people, and you were in the band, I think, right? Okay, so now, young, know-it-all Michael Boytz, I think I'm sure I was way more confident then for some reason than I am now. And I was going to hear them play Rocky Point Holiday. Well, Ron Nelson wrote that for the University of Minnesota Concert Band, Dr. Frank Bencorsciuto, in 1968 for a 28-day landmark tour, breaking the former Iron Curtain in what was the former Soviet Union at the time. And as a high school kid, I had a clinic with Ron Nelson, the composer, teaching the piece. And to date, the editor has not included a lot of the instructions or markings of the piece that are supposed to be in there. And I thought, I don't know how this is going to be. Well, I learned a lot about John Felder that moment because they played the heck out of that piece. And I was like almost in tears of joy because I'm like, holy cow, this guy knows this piece. And for the music educators in the room, you just know when somebody really knows what they're doing and they're teaching the kids really well. It really is not about the kids having like the most miraculous performance, but you can tell what they're going for. You can tell what the nuances, what kind of instructional material they're giving to the kids. And I just knew, I thought he must have some kind of relationship with Ron Nelson, or he really knows the composer really, really well. And I was elated. So later on, I introduced myself when I saw John, and he was in passing. And I asked him, did you know Ron Nelson? And he looked at me and he said, yes, I was his teacher. And I'm doing the math, in my head. And then he just walked away. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't think maybe he meant that, anyway. So, and that was John. And the rest was history because watching what he did at Lynbrook High School taught me everything that I wanted to do at Saratoga High School. And he really was my role model for years and years. And I consider myself to be blessed beyond words to have had John as a role model. Having John as a neighbor at Saratoga High School, like a school neighbor a few miles down, propelled me in everything that I did in my career and with my students because I watched his level of discipline and his expectations. And more than anything, I watched how much he loved his students. Nothing gave me greater joy than when he would talk about his sons and his grandchildren and his family because his face would light up when John spoke about his family. But when you see a person every day like that, you see just how much they really love the kids that they work with. And he was a teenage magnet. He really was a kid magnet. The Lynbrook marching band had over 200 people in it in the early and mid-2000s back at that time. And it was really a miraculous program, and he did so much of all of that himself. So I wanted to be like John, and we started doing exchange concerts together, and I fell for many of his jokes after all those years. But he was so welcoming, and he was the first to be the one to wanted to collaborate. The band directors in the room, if you're in Santa Clara County, you might remember when Lynbrook remodeled the band room. He hosted the Santa Clara County Band Directors Association meeting in the Lynbrook band room. And of course, the tables were set up meticulously and the papers were all laid out. And he made a CD for every one of us because we were recording CDs back in those days. And the notion of you giving other band directors the CD of your high school ensemble, most of us were not that courageous. Like we would talk a good game, but we would be like, I'm not going to let you hear that, But here was John, and he just put it out there for everybody, and they were doing legit repertoire, and it was like, wow, this is really cool, this guy. And so this was somebody that I could really talk music with, that I could really talk education with, that I could talk educational philosophy with, that I learned about what it means to have an impact on kids and what it means to have an impact on music. What does it really mean to interpret a composer's intentions and how serious we should take that? And that to me was the greatest gift. We did those exchange concerts for years with our orchestras and our bands, and they usually ended up with all the kids combined in a finale in John Felder style, very big. And I always wanted him to conduct the finale because I knew that if he was doing it, the kids were going to have this amazing experience. And he always wanted, he was pushing me or Ted Ferrucci or John Byrne or somebody else to do that. But I think we all secretly wanted Doc to do it. John modeled for me, do the work. There's no shortcut in our profession to doing the work. There is no latest software. There's no secret ingredient. It's just a lot of work. And when you talk about seeing that blue van, I called it the Periwinkle van, I think of it. But I remember that van, and John would be up at Lynbrook very early on Sunday morning. I would oftentimes drive over to Byrne's house, which made me drive right by Lynbrook High School, and there was his van, and I'd be taking John and Byrne and his wife and daughter. We'd go out to breakfast, and John's working, And I thought, my God, I guess I should be working, on Sunday morning. And but he was cleaning up what had taken place the week before, and he was preparing for the week. And if you ever borrowed one of his conductor scores, you would see just the notation and how much he cared about making sure the kids had the right kind of experience. And it was, like I said, it was really, really inspiring. His wit was legendary, as we all know. I remember there's somebody in this room who, way back when, asked John it was a conference or something. Now, keep in mind, this is probably 24 years ago. And she was newer to the area, and she walked up to John, and maybe it was in conversation, and she said, "Dr. Feller, how old are you?" And he, with a straight face, John, he said, 86. 24 years ago. And she, like I'm talking, like Ron Nelson, she looked at him and I went like this, and he said, "Okay, 41. Well, we never knew how old he was because he wouldn't, I had to steal his wallet so I could see his license, and then that's when I figured out exactly how old he was. But then, he would, of course, divulge later on, and I said, he's not really 84 or 41, and then later on that day, he leaned up to her, he said, "Sorry, I'm 73. And it was the same, it didn't really help. Many of you have been a part of John's Pops concert at Lynbrook High School and the antics that took place. I'm wondering if anybody here was at the state conference when one of his ensembles performed, and he planned this. So you were there. Were you there when he fell into the ensemble? Yeah. Okay, so nobody knew what he was, yes, Nancy was there. So nobody knew what he was doing. And his Pops concerts were kind of legendary for this. I would drive over to see them from Saratoga High because I would get such a kick out of what he was doing. But this is at the state conference. And he had this whole thing worked up where I forgot how it went exactly, but he was going to be upset about something that was going on, and he went like this into the orchestra, and John is a tall guy. He went down like a redwood into the ensemble, taking out music stands and a couple of flute players with him, planned ahead of time, and the whole audience was like this, and then I went, oh, ho, 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 ho. There's people in this room are going to run up to you and call an ambulance, but he would, if you wanted to do something, man, you had to do it well with John. Like, if it's going to be a joke, it better be the best joke you've ever played in your life, because that's kind of how he rolled. Forgive me as I go around. When John and Pam met each other, it was a really glorious day. I remember John specifically. Every time he talked about his own sons, his face would light up. And when he first talked about Laura, his face lit up, and he said, "I've always wanted a daughter, and I don't think she likes me right now. But I'm gonna grow on her, And our stories are so similar here today, and I think the authenticity of this man and the impact he had on so many of us is immeasurable. And I'm so grateful to know your dad and to have him as a friend and have him as a role model for so many years of my life. And he will be forever in the Lynbrook Band Room, and he will be forever in our hearts. And we will carry on his traditions for him and honor him every chance we get.
We're going to now hear from John's son, Jared.
feel like I should have gone first. Those were two amazing speeches. I'll be lucky just to get through this.
And you can tell whatever, you can repeat whatever stories you want. We're going to try and make this fun.
You already took most of mine, so. All right. For everyone, those who don't know me, I'm Jed or Jared, my dad's eldest son, along with my brothers Zach and Sean and our stepsister Laura. First, just want to start out by saying thank you to everyone for joining us today. We feel so much love and support from all of you. Especially want to say thank you to the family and friends who've traveled pretty far to be here with us, some from difficult circumstances. Really means the world to us. When I first heard the news about my dad, I felt devastated, sad, angry, and guilty. My first thoughts being about the many years we thought we still had with him, and all the things we'd miss out on, and the things we would miss out on with him. New memories, trips together, heart-to-heart talks, laughs, and so many other things. Those feelings and that sadness became overwhelming, so I tried to kind of pivot to instead focus on the full life he had already lived and the many great memories we already had with him. So when I started looking back, I realized what a tremendous influence and inspiration he was to me and my brothers as well. His love of music, film, theater, art, sports, travel, animals, and family had a big impact on the people we became, and I'm so grateful. I would say his love of literature too, but the three of us aren't big readers, so that didn't necessarily pass on. And our stepsister Laura, who came into his life over 20 years ago, as you've heard, is an avid reader, but I think she had that trait from the day she was born, so I can't give credit to him on that one. As most of you probably know, my dad was an amazing musician and composer, playing and teaching music for most of his life. He could play anything, the piano, guitar, and drums being his favorites, even playing on the same stages as Herbie Hancock and Buddy Guy and partying with Eric Clapton. We always had music in our lives, and while he was a little unsuccessful trying to pass his musicianship on to my brothers and me in our youth, Zach and Sean did pick it up later in life much more than I was able to, and he definitely passed it on to his grandson Jet, who is an accomplished musician and composer himself, as you'll get to hear in a bit. And his other kids, grandkids, Rocco and Lucky, aren't bad themselves. I still have vivid memories of the many records and movies he shared with us as kids. We have many videos of us three brothers dancing wildly to Herbie Hancock and Michael Jackson, the Eurythmics, and many others. Some of my favorite movies are still some of the movies we watched with him when we were growing up, such as West Side Story, Animal House, American Graffiti, Young Frankenstein, The Vessel with the Pestle, and The Court Jester, and Die Hard. One of our favorite stories to tell is when he was in LA with the three of us, I think maybe for Zach's college graduation, and we were driving down Olympic Boulevard when he suddenly asked us to pull over. There wasn't much around, just a grocery store, so we didn't know what was happening. He told us to get out and stand on the sidewalk, and we're still a little unclear as to what was going on, and he pointed to an office tower in the distance in Century City and said we're going to take a picture with that office tower in the background. Still a little confused, and then he explained that's the famous Nakatomi Plaza from the first Die Hard movie. So still to this day, I live in LA, so every time I'm driving down Olympic and see that building, I always think of that day. He also, much later in life, as an adult, took me to see Monsters Ball, which was another great movie, Oscar winner for Halle Berry, but probably one of the most awkward movies you could ever watch with a parent. My dad was way more athletic than I sometimes remember. He loved playing tennis and golf and was one of the best ping pong players in the family for years. Even did a mean Dougie on the dance floor during my wedding 10 years ago. He even played in an adult soccer league into his 40s, a very competitive league too, with fights and a bunch of other shenanigans. Not him, of course, but we got to witness some testy games as kids. My Uncle Rami recently told the story of how when my dad would arrive to my grandparents' house for our summer trips to St. Louis, he would immediately change into swim trunks, run outside, and do a backflip off a diving board. He did this almost every time we visited into his 50s and maybe even into his 60s. He loved water skiing too, something he did often as a kid with his parents and siblings on trips to the Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri. He passed that on to us as well. He even found a lake about 2 hours northeast of here that we started going to each summer to water ski and wakeboard for a few years a while back. One of those trips, toward the end, he pulled us aside and said, "All right, I don't think my back is strong enough to get up on skis from out of the water anymore. So what I'm going to do is start by sitting on the dock with my skis in the water, and you guys are going to take off." Sounded like a great idea, but of course didn't end up working, and either did him starting in a sitting position on one of those big inflatable rafts. But up until his back gave out on him, he was always a great water skier, and at least nobody got hurt that trip. He passed all that athleticism on to us. He coached us as kids in t-ball, Little League, and soccer. And when he stopped coaching, he switched to videographer, lugging around a VHS recorder to tape our games as kids, which I know most people probably here don't remember what that is, but it's basically carrying an entire VCR on your shoulder and battery pack around on your, for the entire game. This is, of course, with the 80s, so it was a little more involved than just taping a game on a cell phone these days. But I'm so grateful he did. We have so many memories on video from those earliest days as kids playing sports or trying to break dance in the living room or opening gifts, visiting family, playing with our pets. We had dogs, cats, a rabbit, bird growing up. And I don't think this was captured on video, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, but later in life he became one of the best, worst gift givers when we were adults. For years I wasn't sure if he was being serious with the gifts or if he knew what he was doing, but there were some classics such as multicolored sweaters from Costco or furry hats from trips abroad or kimonos, kitschy t-shirts with embarrassing phrases, so many other things, nothing you'd ever wear outside the house. So didn't really pan out for us, but my dad also really loved family, as you've heard. He would take us to St. Louis as kids any summer or winter break he could so we could spend time with our grandparents and great-grandpa and aunts and uncles and cousins, which we look forward to every time. We have a big family on my dad's side, and like my grandma, my dad loved telling us about family history and explaining the family tree and reminding us who everyone was anytime we'd have big family get-togethers, because we'd forget often. When we visited St. Louis, he loved sledding trips to Art Hill, lake trips to the Ozarks, teaching the kids and grandkids how to swim in my grandparents' pool, playing tennis up the street, taking us to Six Flags, Cardinals games, Ted Drew's frozen custard, lighting fireworks for the 4th of July, which you could do there, and so many other amazing St. Louis memories. And in the second chapter of his life, as you heard, he introduced the family to his new wife, Pam, and her daughter, Laura, who integrated seamlessly with the family and joined us all on the family trips to St. Louis, South Florida, Israel, and a bunch of other places. As he moved on to retirement a few years back, he really enjoyed retired life with Pam and made the most of their newfound free time together. He loved their trips down the Pacific Grove near Monterey and Carmel, where they would take bike rides with their dog Snickers, their cruises all over the world, where Laura even joined them for a cruise around Japan, their trips to New York to visit Laura and see as many Broadway shows as they could fit in, trips to visit his siblings all over the country and some of his childhood friends. One of his favorite joys was spending time with his grandkids, going to their games. Piano recitals, graduations, whatever he could. He could talk music and film with Jet for hours. Even came down to LA to sorry. See, I should have gone first. Even came down to LA to watch Jet's play that he wrote, directed, composed music for, and acted in for his college theater club. He bought a wave runner for our lake trips, mostly just so he could take the grandkids out for wild rides. He was still golfing a ton, even getting to hit some balls with his grandson Rocco, and even starting to get back into tennis again with Pam. He also enjoyed helping Sean work on his new house and had enough free time in retirement to unretire and help his friends out with a couple of music teaching gigs back at the high school and college levels. I'm so happy that he was really living life and doing all the things that brought him the most joy. I'll be forever, forever thankful for all the wisdom, experiences, advice, time, laughs, and love he shared with us. I love him and miss him dearly. Sorry. Last to speak is my Aunt Stephanie, my dad's sister, who's here all the way from Israel. So we didn't know if they'd get a flight out. We're very happy. Oh, safely.
Talk about a few hard acts to follow. I'll do my best. We actually didn't know we were coming until a few days ago, but with the ceasefire, we made it here safely. Let the kids and Pam know. Many of you here, I realize, knew John professionally, but for me, he was my sensitive, smart, talented big brother. Growing up, we were each doing our own thing, maybe because of the age difference. One of my first memories of when he was living with us still in Ladue was practicing piano in the basement. My two brothers, Stephen and Merrick, making fun of me and cringing. And John came down and said, "Steph, keep it up, try to keep time, and look out for the sharps in the flats." And that almost ended my career right there. When John graduated high school, he went to Stanford on a scholarship, moved to California, and really never came back home. This was before emails and iPhones, so the only way we could communicate was by letter writing. And we wrote back and forth for several years. Some letters were just about what we were both up to, but grew to be his taking a genuine interest in my development, encouraging me with his gentle guidance towards more awareness and self-assurance. We discussed religion, what books we were reading, what movies we had seen, even women's liberation. How wonderful it was to have a big brother looking out for me. Much later, when I decided to move with Rami to Israel, John was very supportive of the move. Our joint summer vacations, as you've heard already, in St. Louis became so much more important to us siblings and to Mom and Dad. It was our way of keeping our strong bonds, even though we lived all over, and John was instrumental in making that happen. Family was so important to John, and now looking back on it, seems so amazing that those were our first priorities every summer. It came to it that my kids asked me, "Is there nothing between New York and St. Louis?" Because we never went anywhere except to Tamarack Drive. He loved Israel and closely followed the politics there as much as the politics here in the United States. He loved my family so much he came to every bar mitzvah and every wedding. I'd always known that John was a talented musician, but my first experience was when Maya and I flew to New York to join the rest of the Felders and my father. We saw him conducting his students at Carnegie Hall. I was blown away. I was so moved, especially seeing him and seeing the love and the respect coming from his students. John, we miss you already, dear brother. This is going to be hard. How wonderful it was when you brought Joan into our family and had such amazing sons that we keep and feel so closely to. And then you brought Pam and Laura into our family. It was so heartwarming to witness your love. John, you've left us with wonderful, warm memories of your love, your sensitivity, and your unique sense of humor. Thank you.
We're going to now hear a musical dedication to John called Eulogy, composed and performed by his grandson, Jet.
Hi, everyone. Actually, I'm going to be speaking a little bit first. So for those of you I haven't met, my name is Jet, and I'm one of John's grandchildren. The two of us shared a special connection through music. We spent many hours together composing and playing music. So when I began writing a speech for his service, I decided that writing a piece of music for him would instead be more appropriate. It's called Eulogy, and I hope you enjoy it.
That was really beautiful. O God of life, amid the ceaseless tides of change which sweep away the generations, your love remains to comfort us and to give us hope. Around us are life and death, decay and renewal, the flowing rhythm that all things obey. Our life is a dance to a song we cannot hear. Its melody courses through us for a little while, then seems to cease. Whence the melody, and whither does it go? In darkness as in light, we turn to you, the source of life, and the answer to all its mysteries. I invite you, if you are able, to rise for the El Malay. El Malay Rachamim, Shochen B'Miromim, Hamtzei Minucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, Im Kedoshim Utehorim, Ki Zohar Akiham Mazihirim, Et Nishmat Yaakov Moshe ben Avram Hirsch ve'et Arata shehalach le'olamo Ba'al harachamim yasirehu b'seit kenafav le'olamim v'yitzro b'toch ha'chaim en nishmato Adonai hu nachalato v'yanuchu b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar amen. May the source of life, the fountain of all being, open our hearts to compassion and our eyes to wisdom, that we might glimpse in perfect peace and sadness the way of all things. May John's memory be for us a blessing, and may we never let the light of his love grow dim in our hearts. May we remember all his worthy and righteous deeds, that his memory be forever bound up in the bond of life. God is our source and our destination, our beginning and our end. May John's death awaken us to this truth, that the bond of love we shared and share not be severed in sorrow. May he rest in peace, and together we say, Amen. I invite you to respond with the words, we remember him. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember him. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember him. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of the sun, we remember him. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember him. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember him. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember him. So long as we live, John too shall live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him. I invite you, if you took a piece of paper as you walked in, may the love and eternal connection of our souls give us strength as we turn to recite the words hallowed by time, sanctifying the name of God. We honor the memory of John with the words of Kaddish Tom, the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba, be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach le'alam u'lamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei kudesha b'richu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran ve'alma v'imru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru, amen. Eternal God, Master of mercy, give us the gift of remembering. May our memories of John be tender and true, undiminished by time. Let us recall them and love them as they were. Shelter us with the gift of tears. Let us express our sense of loss, our sorrow, our pain, as well as our love and words unspoken. Bless us with the gift of prayer. May we face you with an open heart, with trusting faith, unembarrassed and unashamed. Strengthen us with the gift of hope. May we always believe in the beauty of life, the power of goodness, the right to joy. May we surrender our being and the soul of the dead to your all-knowing compassion. We say, Hamakom yenachem etchem betoch sha'ar avelei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God comfort us among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. We say, now we go forth in peace to life. So I'm going to invite the congregation to wait one moment and turn your faces towards the center aisle as the family leaves. That way they leave in the comfort of all of your arms and your eyes. They look forward to greeting you both out in the lobby and in the Oneg room, where we invite you to join and share some remembrances of John. This concludes our service.